So today I'm going to be talking about my field experience, and this will be my classroom reflections for EDN 300. The first school I attended for my field experience was Coddington Elementary School. Even though I have already had field experience in the past, I was still nervous to see how well I would do and just how much I remembered. I was placed in a kindergarten class, which caused me to become curious of how the class would be constructed. I'm hoping to teach third to fifth grades, so being in a lower grade classroom really put into perspective how different each grade level responds to instruction. When I walked into the classroom, I was asked to help students who were working independently on their iPads. Many of them would raise their hands and ask me questions about the software. Even though I was unfamiliar with the platform, it was easy to navigate and I was able to help numerous students. They were learning how to add single digit numbers, and while most of them were able to come up with the correct answer, there were a few who needed more assistance. I've never been good at math, but I found it to be surprisingly easy when guiding them through how to answer the questions. The teachers whose class I was in demonstrated Standard 4 of the North Carolina Teaching Standards. She would help students to use critical thinking when answering problems and would always ask them if they had any questions. When I saw this, I started to mimic her teaching style since that was what the students were used to. I did not give them any of the answers, but instead I showed them the appropriate way to analyze a problem. This is something I would use in my own classroom as well because I was able to see how effective it was to students' understanding. After lunch, the students went directly into their ELA period where they were split up into three groups. One group worked on an individual assignment while the other two spent time at learning centers with both the teacher and the assistant teacher. After 20 minutes, these groups would switch. The third group was left to me both days I visited Coddington. Both times, students were asked to color in an assignment and add a sentence at the bottom. They would often get off task and lose focus quickly. I had to tell them multiple times to get back to their work, and in one specific case, I had to become very stern with the student. The one thing I didn't like about this was that the teacher did nothing about it. She may have been doing it to see how well I was able to assess the issue, but I have never had to be this strict with the student before. Eventually, the student started paying attention and was able to complete his assignment. I'm honestly not sure how the teacher is able to have these groups on a daily basis. The third group usually has no one to monitor them, which can cause students to turn in incomplete work. If I were to do this in my own classroom, I would separate students into two groups where one works directly with me and the other works with the assistant teacher. After the groups have gone to each learning center, I would bring the class back together as a whole group and work on the activity all together. This would allow me to monitor my students while also being able to help them if needed. This teacher did a good job of demonstrating Standard 3 as she completely understood the topic she was teaching. I do know that she has had this job for a long time, so she probably has a good sense of what works best in her classroom. You could see the standard being used during the classroom reading time. The teacher chose a book that reflected on personal responsibility, which falls under the Teachers Make Instruction Relevant to Students under Standard 3 of the NCPTS. I had a lot of time to work with students in this class, which I was very happy about. I do think I gained a lot of experience just from the 2 days I went, but it also showed me that I definitely do not want to teach younger grades. Gregory Elementary was completely different than any school I have ever visited. I was placed in a second grade class that rotated with a different classroom. One day they would be learning in an English instruction course, and the other day they would be in a Spanish instruction course. The class I had was the English instruction course, so I was able to truly see how well the students comprehended the material they were learning. The teacher was a first year teacher who recently graduated from UNCW. She seemed a little overwhelmed at points, but was still able to gain the attention of her students when she needed to. I was actually kind of impressed by how well her students listened to her, but after speaking to her, I understood why. She told me that at the beginning of the year, she found it difficult to control her students, but she quickly learned that you have to be assertive in order to get your students to listen to you. She would do this by clapping out a beat in which the students would repeat back to her. The teacher had a small section of her room dedicated to a positivity zone where students who were either constantly off task or just needed to de stress could go. Students were able to stay there for 2 minutes, and there were posters that focused on thinking through your feelings and keeping a positive attitude. This method can be tied into Standard 1 of the NCPTS since the teacher was establishing a safe and orderly environment. While I was at the school, I was able to see the students during their math, English, and lunch period. The first day I visited, the class enjoyed their lunch outside. You could tell that they were so excited about this because right when the teacher told them they could, their faces were instantly filled with joy. It was nice seeing the students in a different environment, and I was able to have conversations with many of them. During math, students worked in their math book and completed an activity based on adding and subtracting numbers with different place values. Most of the students worked at their table groups, but 5 of them worked at a learning center with their teacher. There's not that much that really happened during this time because there were no students who actually needed help. I really enjoyed the English period of this course because students were working on a project. They were asked to research any animal of their choosing, but each student had to have a different animal. They used a platform on the classroom iPads which could be compared to a search engine for children's books. This is an assignment I would use in a future classroom because it integrates technology and keeps the students' attention. This assignment shows that the teacher demonstrates Standard 4, which states teachers should be able to help students use technology to learn content, think critically, solve problems. The one thing I would change about this project would be the end goal. The teacher did not necessarily state the end goal of this assignment, yet simply told the students to just find facts about the animal they chose. If I did this in my classroom, I would let the students know their expectations before giving out their research assignment. I would also provide them with a paper that lists multiple questions for them to research along with the rubric. This will help to ensure that students are aware of what needs to be done, since they will be able to direct themselves back to the instructions if needed. Overall, my experience at Gregory was helpful to my overall knowledge of becoming a teacher, and I have discovered new ideas that I want to incorporate into my own classroom.